All right. So then let's say let's kick it off. And first, should we just say one, two sentences? Yeah. All
Yes,
right.
please.
So it's super cool that so many made it into the final week. And so we did this on our that would be our last session in the official curriculum. But because the ice bath and sauna has been broken, we're gonna do this at the closing. I think everybody got the message. But I'm very excited for this session as well because Benny and me, we met. Like I met Joshua when I was in Copenhagen in a run club, and I was talking about, I don't know, men's health, and he suddenly approached me. He's like, "Hey, I'm basically doing something or like thinking about something similar," and he's regularly, and he will tell you a bit more in a second. But we then organized like a whole event together at Plug and Heat Club, which is like big sauna ice bath community, where he brought together then different men, and was really cool. And we also did our first men's circle ever with Joshua. He led it into the woods with everything that you would think about it when you think about the stereotype. So like man in the woods making fire. But this was really, really cool. And since then, Joshua has supported us so much in our journey and is regularly talking at events, health events, big health events in Copenhagen. Has big clients like TikTok, where he regularly coaches the executives teams. But I think I will leave it here. He can tell you a bit more about himself. But in general, we are super happy to like just really have been like that we met Joshua. He's one of the best humans I know, and I don't know him so much.
Thank you for that welcome. And I echo that back to both of you, Kevin and Benny. It's such an honor. And good morning to all of you. Thank you for being here so early your time. I'm actually based currently seeing my family back in Canada. So I'm on the west coast of North America. Here it's 10:30 p.m. So we're a bit flipped around. I'm sure it's probably a little bit more for you guys. So thank you very much for getting up early. This is also a work day, I'm sure, for all of you. So hopefully this is a good start to your day. I'm not going to say it's necessarily going to be easy. It's not supposed to be easy, but I hope it's insightful. Yeah, so it's really a pleasure. And again, Kevin and Benny, what you've created here with Grown Ups and you guys being the first cohort. I've been following what you've been doing on school. It's been really cool to see the engagement there. And you guys are the pioneers in what is a new movement in this important work in the kind of men's work space. And this is, a talk really around leadership focused on what I call leadership from the inside out. It's this idea that for you to be able to lead in your lives, to lead your families, to lead in work, to lead your communities, you first have to lead yourself. And from what I understand, hopefully it's a little bit of a culmination of your work so far. I understand you've done a little bit of more somatic work, so working with the body, doing some kind of own physical assessments, doing some physical work, doing some breathing, doing some journaling, doing some cold plunges, some challenges, different things. And I hope this will kind of wrap it up into a way that you can kind of take it away and move forward. And I hope also it's a little bit of a way for us to figure out what's good for future cohorts. I understand the second cohort's already begun. That's online. Is that correct, Kevin? Yeah. Okay. So a big welcome to all of you. I'm hoping not to do too much presentation stuff, but there will be a little bit of it. First question for you guys is who's had a chance to play with the journaling exercise, which hopefully was forwarded to you. Maybe just put your hands up physically. Anybody got to play with that? Some of you? Cool. Great. Nikolai, Florian, maybe you've had a chance, maybe not. Christian, I couldn't see if you did. But we're going to play with that a little bit today. I know you've done some journaling, so it's just like a different style, really. I'm also going to share some stuff via kind of short presentations. Yeah, but first I would like to get a check-in on everyone, really starting with a bit of a full body check-in. And you're going to do that individually. So I'm going to lead you. Then we're going to go into a little bit of breath. But first with the body check-in, why do we do that? Well, as you guys know, I'm sure from what you've been doing here with grown-ups is a lot of what we store in terms of trauma or frustration, anger, it resides in our body. And I think especially most of us men, I'll put my hand up there, can feel quite disassociated from our bodies. And we store a lot of this tension, around our hips, I'll just stand up around our hips, and then our like solar plexus and our chest. And also things like the jaw. If you ever like do that with your jaw, you can maybe just do it with me now. Just like try to rub your knuckles against your jaw. You might feel some like tension, some like little rough bits, maybe some knots. Do you feel anything when you do that? A lot of people have a lot of tension in their jaw or up around here. I'm doing it there. Lots of tension. You might see people doing some like tongue exercises. That's really popular right now. So I'm just logging into my little book, are doing this because we actually store a lot in our jaw. So we're just going to play with a few of those things. Sorry, just let me log in here to my little device. Perfect. So we're going to do a little bit of that. So play along with me, and then we'll do a little bit of breath. And then we're going to do a little bit of a check-in. So I'm going to be asking you guys after the body check-in, after the breath session, to ask someone to lead by letting me know how you're doing, a check-in round. Okay? But no worries, Sasha's having some issues with Google Meet, so Sasha just can join us when he's ready. All right. So wherever you're sitting, it sounds like both of you, everyone is, just try to sit up as straight as you can, putting your feet really firmly planted. That's important, of course. It's grounding, right? I don't know if you guys do it, but sometimes when I'm feeling really disconnected with my body, I'll actually go outside with bare feet and just like really feel the ground. Something very powerful you can do if you haven't tried it before. Sometimes you look like a bit of an idiot, but it does work. Go to your nearest park or be like that crazy guy on the street, right? With like no shoes on in the winter. All right. But feeling kind of firmly grounded, I'm actually going to keep my eyes open. You can keep your eyes open as well. It's fine. We'll be closing our eyes for the breath. But, as you're kind of just feeling your feet planted, start kind of, feeling what it feels like to feel that presence of your feet on the floor, right? That weight on the floor, feeling like grounded to the earth. Again, we'll do this a little bit in the breath as well. So really feeling that. And actually what I'm doing right now, you can't see me, but I have my hands on my thighs. I'm actually like pressing into my thighs. So start moving your sense of your body up to your thighs. So I'm just basically pressing, just doing that, right? And you're just starting to get a little bit of like a sensory feeling around your legs. Again, we store a lot of tension. Now moving up to where your hips are, of course, just start like feeling. And maybe you might feel like, for example, your lower back. As you move up, you might feel some tension there. A lot of us feel a lot of tension because we sit down a lot, right, in our daily lives. I don't know about you, but I feel some like little like knots kind of at the bottom of my lower back. I don't know if you feel it in yourselves. And even if like pressing into my hips here, when I'm doing that, I can like feel like right here, I have lots of like tension building up. And I'm doing that on purpose because that's where we store a lot, right? It's important when it comes to, we're going to talk later, that you start trying to identify where you feel some blocks, right? And that starts with our body. Then going into our solar plexus, like this area, right? You might feel some like tension down here. We store a lot of anger and frustration, especially around here, around our livers. Some people, if you actually try to press into under your rib on your right side, you might feel a lot of tension. I remember I worked with a somatic coach about 6 months ago. I suddenly got really angry. Like I started playing with that part underneath my rib. And I don't even know where it came from. Just get ready for this. I'm like, ready for what? And he pressed into it. All this anger came out and he let that go. And then I suddenly wanted to cry. And this was all in the span of like 30 seconds, So again, that little area on the right side under your ribs, under your liver, start pressing into that. That can generate a lot. Then just moving into your chest, right? Where we have a lot of tension, probably up around pecs. You guys are doing some physical activity, feel some pressure around here. Store a lot of shit up here in our chest as well, right? Then into our shoulders, just starting to move our shoulders back a little bit and forward. Again, storing a lot of tension around our shoulders in this area and our neck. Starting to move our necks a little bit. Maybe starting to rotate your head. Probably feel some little mini cracks. All this is trying to get a sense for where you are as people, as in you just woke up, right? And I totally understand that you're probably still half asleep, but it's also a good way for you to check in with yourself before you go to work, right? Before you're going to get on with your days, on with your missions. Going into your throat. This is an important part, right? There's a reason why it's a chakra area in our throats. It's where you have your voice as well, right? And there's something here about the importance of using our voices as men, that our words matter, right? Our words matter because our words should also mimic our actions in life, who we are showing up as leaders in our own lives. I don't know about you, but as a man, I've definitely been in places and times in my life where my words did not match my actions. So again, it's something around there. Again, back to the draw. We already played around this, but again, trying to feel, maybe you might feel some little knots in your jaw. Start trying to open up, just opening up your jaw, really opening it up. See how I'm like really, really opening, really starting to loosen. Yeah, and then just, you can always like do stuff with your head too, right? Where I don't know about you, but having someone massage your head is like the best thing in the world, especially the back here. These areas here, really pressing up. We store again a lot of tension. If you guys hold there and try to push really hard, you're probably going to find a lot of tension behind your neck. I don't know if you can feel that. Kevin's saying, yeah. It's a lot of stuff there, right? So why are we doing this? We're doing this because it's all about self-awareness, right? You being able to lead in your life means you need to increase your self-awareness. And it starts with the body. It's something that personally I'm always struggling with. I find very easily I can come out of my body. I'm just in my mind constantly. And it's really important to just, touch base back with your body, right? So unless you have any questions, we're going to go to some breath. Again, it's just going to be a quick overview. I know you've done a lot, and I'm not going to necessarily offer you anything that you haven't seen before, but I'm going to share a very quick story. And we'll talk a little bit about my background after. But I was so I'm Canadian, but I was in the British military for many years. Spent many tours. I think that I did 4 tours in Afghanistan, a couple in Iraq, a lot of time spent away. And in I guess it was my last tour in Afghanistan, I was flying from Kabul, capital of Afghanistan, to a little crazy, gnarly place on the Pakistani border. And it was pretty like high tension, quite dangerous, I would say, dangerous. And there was a bunch of special forces guys on the helicopter, right? And I was sitting beside these guys, and I was kind of looking at them like, okay, shit, these dudes are like legit, right? They're like the stuff out of movies, right? They were SAS guys, if you guys know SAS, Special Air Service. And there was like an energy coming out of them. And they were about to do a mission, right? They were about to execute on a mission. And we were kind of supporting them with some different things. And they had this air and energy of calm, like just so calm and so regulated. And I was watching one of the guys right beside me, and he just like he had the whole thing going, and I could just see him with his eyes closed. And of course, it's a helicopter; it's quite loud, but I could just watch him, his nose, and he was just breathing, just doing up for 4, holding for 4, down 4, hold 4. And you've probably heard this box breath before. Has everybody heard the box breath? Yeah. So you guys probably know the box breath is something that the military trains for, specifically the box breath, because it's easy, it's fast, and it makes effect really, really quickly. So it's that, it's the classic breathe up for 4, hold for 4, down 4, hold 4, and just keep on making the breath, right? So that's something you guys know. We're not going to say practice that right now, but it was more just a quick story of how I've witnessed kind of the top tier of performance and watching people in those moments use breath as a lever, right? Because they are going to execute on a mission. And the person who was really intentional about that, because I spoke to him after, was the kind of patrol lead, right? The leader of this patrol. He was the one who was always the one setting that standard for self-awareness in the body and the breath before going to execute. So yeah, just with that, we'll just do a very quick breathing exercise. So just again, same position as you were before, with your feet firmly planted on the floor. Starting to take some deep breaths. You're going to be following me. When I tell you to hold, then you'll hear me. I'll give you like a 1, 2, and then on the 3, that's when I'm going to ask you to hold. And I'm going to ask you to hold for an extended period of time. We're going to build up. We'll do around, say, 15 seconds for the first hold, and it's always going to be at the top of the breath. Okay. Then we'll go to a 30-second hold. And then we're going to go to a 45-second hold. You could probably do more, but for the purpose of this, we're going to build it up. All right. So just taking normal breaths right now, but we're going to start breathing in not too deeply, but just at a regular rate, but breathing in through the nose and out through the mouth. Again, incorporating the body. If you are open your eyes right now, you'll see me, I'm rotating my shoulders a little bit. So try to play with that a little bit. Try to play with opening your chest as well. All right. So breathing in with your nose and out and in and out and in and out. Breathe a little bit more. Breathing in and out. Breathing in as high as you can and out and in and out. So we're going to be building up to the first hold. So breathing in for 1 and out. Breathing in for 2 and out. And on this third breath in, you're going to hold. Breathing in high as you can and hold. Try to sip. 5, 4, 3, release. And start breathing up now, building to 30 seconds. Breathing in through your nose. Expand the lungs and out. Remember, you're going to go for a 30-second hold, so you really need to get some air and really expand your lungs. Breathing in and out. I will count you in, so don't worry. Again, you're going to be holding at a count of 3, so I'll tell you when. Breathing in, really breathing in, letting it all out. You're training yourself right now. Breathing in and out. Remember, you're building up, you're training yourself, building in that inner leadership. Breathing in and out. All right, breathing in for 1 and out. Breathing in for 2 and out. Now breathing in for 3. You're going to hold at the top. Breathing in. Hold. Five, 4, 3, 2, release. Keep on breathing. Last one we're going to be doing is 45 seconds. Again, we're building up our tolerances right now. It's an exercise in learning how to lead your own body, your own mind, your own emotions. In this last hold, I want you to not only hold your breath, but as you're holding, I want you to really touch base with your body. I want you to feel your body and focus on a white light. Pretending a white light is focused between your 2 eyes. So what's they call the third eye. Pretend that there's a bright white light coming from your third eye, which is the place, again, just between your eyes, above your eyes. Okay. So breathing in again and out. Expand the lungs, breathing in and out, breathing in. And you're going to push to 45 seconds. So really train your lungs. Breathing in for 1 and out. Breathing in for 2 as high as you can. Breathing in and out. And now for the 45-second hold. Breathing in as hard as you can. Hold. 5, 4, 3, 2, release. Let's go back to normal breathing. I'm rotating my shoulders right now. Again, opening up my lungs, starting to become a little bit more present with my body, starting to move my fingertips, my feet, slowly my eyes open. And I'll invite you to do the same. So from my understanding, you've done some of this stuff before. It might not have been too much different than what you have experienced, but all this was an exercise in training, right? Training your body and preparing itself, right? For stress, the stresses of the day. The longer you can extend your breath holds, we only did on the breath in and hold. But as I'm sure many of you know, it's also extremely powerful to hold breath on the out. And I think the science is kind of growing that holding breath on the out is also extremely powerful. So again, that's something you can try. All right. So I just need to check something here with yes, I need to refresh. I just need to share my screen. But before I do that, I need to, give me 1 second. My camera might go off for a second and then I'll come back. Don't worry. Need to check something for me to be able to share. It's going to work. Can you guys just give me 1 second? I need to hop off and then I'll hop back on. All right. All right. I'm back. You guys hear me okay? Perfect. All right. So I'm going to share my screen. I hope this works. Can you guys see my screen? It says leading from the inside out. Yeah, check. Okay, cool. So I'm not going to be doing hopefully not too much presenting per se, but it's just a little bit of an introduction of what we're going to do today, and we might go a little bit off piste. But long story short, we have just done the body check-in and a bit of a short breath session. Right. We're now going to go into this area here where I'm going to be asking you to share, and that's important, right? Because what we're talking about here is don't worry so much about this area here. This is something we'll talk about later on. But one thing that's going to be quite reoccurring in the theme today around leadership is having an understanding of self-awareness, having an understanding of what we call limiting beliefs. And we'll talk a little bit about that later today. Some of you might have seen that in the material I shared, but we'll go into the theory. But before we do that, I would like someone to share a check-in on something going on in your life that's reoccurring. And what I mean by that is something that's like a niggling, ongoing stress, an ongoing, never-ending belief you have. It could be something like, I'm scared about losing my job, or I'm not going to pay my bills, or I'm not going to the gym enough, something that is like niggling in the back of your mind. Does anybody have anything like that they'd be willing to share? Yeah. Florian, I think maybe you were first.
I think for me, the biggest one after reflecting is kind of that somehow I need to do more to be accepted, which just leads to more and more work and projects and doing things, which is sometimes nice, but also stressful.
Okay, so there's something there around, acceptance or worthiness, having to reach some level of success, striving, right? And never being quite enough, something like that. Okay. Yeah, I definitely identify with that one, 100%. Anybody else be willing to share? I think, Nikolai, did I see you might have hand one up? Yeah.
Yeah, it plays into the same category, but I don't know. I often think like when I look back to my life now in 20 years or something, that I feel like I could have done more with my life, and like the dreams that I have or something. And then I don't know that it is not enough that I did kind of also do more. So.
Yep, that's again, sound very similar, as you said, to what Florian said, and that's no coincidence. We're already picking up patterns that I think, again, I can put my hands up and say I definitely feel as well. Thank you, Christian.
Yeah, hi. For me, it's not something that is always occurring, but often and at the moment as well. And that is in the dating context. I don't know if anyone can relate, but that I get anxious when I really like someone, and then and then I get really, why didn't you write back? This feeling of anxiousness, and then when I get the message from that person, I'm fine again, and then I'm in control, and then I can write again because now she wrote me back, she likes me, kind of like that, and then I'm in control again. I can write, and as soon as I wrote and maybe wrote a question or something like that, I'm again like checking my phone, and did she write? And there's always a tension that is super annoying.
That's a powerful one, and I appreciate you bringing something in with relationship. And if I can ask you, Christian, how would it feel if you didn't have this confirmation or approve, this kind of confirmation or approval when she gets back to you? What would you be feeling?
Relaxed and maybe confident, or either that I know she's going to write back, something like that, or if she doesn't write back, then that's how it is, and I'm still going to be fine.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Which I know that's the case, but it doesn't. My body doesn't feel that way.
Doesn't. Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, that's interesting too. There's like what our mind is saying and how our body is responding. Yeah, that's super powerful. That's going back to the importance of connecting with our bodies, right? Kevin?
For me, it's also more in the confirmation direction. So, but towards people. So I always look in my professional setting or in my private setting for confirmation of my skills, of being who I am. So it doesn't come naturally from within. I need some confirmation from the outside.
Yeah,
that's patterns that I recognize. Yeah.
Well, yeah, we'll just for sure. Feel it. Benny?
I think Lucas was before, but I...
Oh, sorry, yeah, missed it. Someone take...
I can also share. The typical feeling that is recurring for me is this typical, the green, the grass is greener on the other side. Kind of a bit of rationally thinking about it. I know it's kind of always a downside on that side as well that I'm not seeing. But nonetheless, kind of the pattern reoccurs and kind of the feeling of maybe I should do this, maybe I should do this, kind of in private and kind of personal and professional life. Is definitely a reoccurring theme.
Okay, so grass is greener. So you're always striving for something, thinking there's something better, and maybe that could limit your ability to be present. For example, appreciating what's happening now and creating that awareness. Okay, yeah.
Appreciating kind of the here and now, being happy about it, being content about it, because kind of always future looking to kind of what could be another thing, maybe what's better on that side.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. Benny, did you have something or no?
Yeah. So for me, I think the reoccurring is that, especially in the work text, also as a...
Not quite hearing your comments. I don't know if it's just...
is it me?
It could just be me. Can you guys hear Benny okay?
Yeah, it's a little bit shaky.
Okay. And you're also a warrior because I know you're not feeling very well today. So, all right. But hey, let's, write in the chat. Good idea. All right. So that was just a little bit of a check-in. Now let's do this. I know this is a little bit we're going to go back to basics a little bit here. We won't spend too much time, but it is important that I get a little bit of a sense from you guys what you believe leadership is. And when I'm going to ask the question in a moment, try to think of some example, right? It could also be what leadership isn't, right? Because that can also help us, right? But just a little bit of a hint when we're talking about this, I want you to think about leadership when it comes to self, right? I want you to think about leadership when it comes to leading others. So that could be, people directly in your life. It could be in relationships, right? Your friends, family, but also at work. And then there's something else, which is something around, I know it depends on how you frame it, but it could be community, could be your mission, could be planet, right? It's trying to say, and of course that's related to others, it's related to self, but picture this one as something a little bit bigger, right? It's something grander, right? Maybe about your intention in life. And that's important. I think it's really important for us men to have a purpose and mission. There's some old ancient African proverb, and it's something like, the little boy will burn down the village just to feel its warmth. Have you ever heard that? Something like that. And it's really powerful because it's basically saying, right, that if we don't have firstly, a firm foundation in family, in relationships, but more importantly, if we don't have a mission, we end up burning down the village. And this is the idea that we cause destruction because we're not moving towards something of purpose, right? So just with that, can somebody just start blurting it out? Like what does leadership mean to you? And then I'm just going to take a couple notes. Yeah, just start firing away. Christian, you have something.
Yeah, responsibility. Being responsible for oneself and also for your own actions and for your words.
Love it. Yeah. So it's like, responsibility, accountability, things like that. All right, Kevin?
I would say being authentic and stay to your values. So authentic and stay close to your values, which is probably the same.
Yeah. Yeah. So having these kind of core values being your North Star, possibly you could call it that way. When things get cloudy, uncertain, you have these kind of values that you always know you can be directed towards, something like that. Okay. Yeah. Anybody else? Sasha?
Empowering others to be like the best version of themselves.
Love that. Yep. So identifying, so it's saying like a team dynamic, like identifying those people in your team, really understanding who they are, what their weaknesses are, weaknesses in quotations, right? This idea, I don't know if you heard this term about like mission command. It's also a military term. It's not telling people how to do things, right? You give them like a mission, right? And you empower them to execute it, right? Without micromanaging. So maybe something like that. Okay.
We're still staying in this sense of leadership where it's not about like leading others only, but also leading yourself. No, it's like,
it's both. We're going to go into the self-leadership in a moment, but I think it's a good question. It can also be leading. It can also be in that self part, right? So it could be, self-discipline, daily habits, but yeah, so kind of like an open thing right now. But if anybody, let's have a few more examples. Lucas?
I think for me, it's also being somewhat a role model. And by that, maybe also inspiring others.
Yeah, and I saw that from you, Benny, inspiring others. And that's, I guess, what was also said already. Lucas, would you also see that, role modeling, inspiring through your own actions, right? So leading through. Okay. All right. Good. I'm just going to
And it's gone. You're mute.
Yeah, check. Now I'm back. All right. I also, for some reason, the screen stopped sharing. So let's just see here. All right.
I have one more that I think is important for all of them, actually, and that is integrity, and that you also stay true to your word, also with yourself. So not only with others, but also when you say you do something or you want to do stuff, then you also do that, because at some point you stop believing in yourself when you don't do it.
Love that. Super, super important. Okay. Good. I feel like we got a good overview. And I think the point here was there's so much of theory around leadership. People have different definitions depending on who you are, what your experience, what the context is. And what we achieved here was really trying to put words onto what we believe leadership is. And what I got from this, there was a lot here, like you just mentioned there, Christian, right, around integrity, but everything seemed to be quite focused on where I was hoping it was going to, which is around, like it's around like action, right? It's around doing something. For me, that's what really separates, say, if you use that kind of normal question, what's the difference between, management and leadership, right? Leadership is ultimately, amongst other things, is having your values, as you mentioned, Kevin, right? You being clear on who you are, and that's both the good and the bad. It's about being bold. It's about having courage, but it can't just be in words. It needs to be in action. And this is where we're going to go on to now, because a lot of the things that I've experienced that stops us from taking action is when we have these beliefs about who we think we are. And we're going to talk about that now. Just before I do that, hopefully you guys can see my screen okay. Just a little bit about me, and I'm not going to spend too much time on this. So I have worked in the military. I was in the military for almost 15 years. I started when I was really young. I then went into corporate, and actually recently I've left corporate and now going kind of all in on coaching, facilitating. I'm going to skip all the details. The point is that my mission, really, amongst other things, is to really get into these, what I call, and I've used the words with you, Kevin, and Benny, these corridors of power, where I believe power sits in our world, and really help people to uncover who they really are underneath the masks, underneath the facades, underneath the suits or the uniforms. And that's why I think it's really important link to men's work, right? Because all of us men struggle with that. A lot of us have these suits of armor that are feeling like impenetrable sometimes. And I know I feel that quite consistently. Wearing masks. I mean, I wore a mask for so many years, particularly in the military, thinking who I was supposed to be, feeling like I had to constantly perform. I wasn't good enough. I had to be someone, had to get the girls, had to do the thing. And that's ultimately what I focus on, is helping people, supporting people to uncover what's inside. And I think that's the segue to this next part. And this is just a little bit of a triangle here. Call it a leadership triangle, something like that. But you can see on the bottom of the triangle, there's this thing around self-awareness, right? And that's why I started with the body work, right? I started with the breath, because everything needs to start with this thing around self-awareness. Because if you are self-aware, you can then manage, and I'm sorry for all right, give me a second. I need to layer this better so I don't, okay. Don't worry about the screen now, but essentially you need to have self-awareness so that you can manage your own emotions, so that you can see and manage the emotions in others, so that you can lead. There's a lot there around emotions, and that's on purpose. Something that you hopefully would have seen in maybe some of the attachments which were shared was this thing around beliefs. All right. So this is why I was asking you guys to give me a little bit of a sense for where you were and what was holding you back in your rumination, right? Was these beliefs we have. And what I'm saying here, this is from the journal that I published, from my life, my work, my experiences, that our true potential and ability to reach our goals is often due with our limiting beliefs, right? And these beliefs are rooted in previous conditioning and experiences, and even your genes, right? And they impact how you feel. They also impact your habits and your behavioral patterns, all right? So it's this idea that you need to be aware of what beliefs you're holding about yourself and the world around you, because it directly impacts how you think and feel, okay? Which directly impacts your behavior, which directly impacts how you're showing up in the world. And that's what I'm saying about this whole thing around leadership, right? Around leading yourself. So this is like in the self part. And that's important to understand. So if you uncover what's holding you back in terms of your belief system, you're then going to be able to think and feel differently, which is going to impact your behaviors and how you show up in the world. I hope that makes sense to everyone. Yeah. We're going to talk about that a little bit more. Does anybody have any questions before we continue? All right. A big part also of this whole thing around self-awareness is also, and I'm not going to talk too much about this, but it's being really, really aware of your own internal systems. And there's something called the 3 emotional regulation systems. This is something that I can share with you guys after, but this is something that you can use in your own life as a little bit of a reminder. So we operate in 3 emotional regulation systems at any one time. They're the drive system, the soothing system, and the threat system. In a lot of our modern life, I hope you guys can see this ish okay, we tend to operate in this area here between the threat system and the drive system. You've probably heard this before, right? That our brain doesn't know the difference between our ancestors being chased in the savannah by a lion, right? Which, of course, is very fucking scary. But our brain doesn't know the difference between that and, I don't know, you being late for a meeting or not showing up in a way you should, in not going to the gym because you said you would. I know it's so basic, but the point is anything that causes stress will kind of trigger your threat system, all right? And it will specifically bring up feelings of anger, anxiety, disgust. It's triggering your amygdala and it's creating cortisol, right? And just like the other side is we're also in this constant drive system, which is our motivation system, which is basically this whole thing, which is very powerful and very positive, which is motivation, right? Seeking, aspiring, thriving, feelings of excitement, desire, vitality, behaviors. You're engaging, you're basically triggering the basal ganglia part of the brain. You have this dopamine hit, right? It's very intoxicating. And we tend to kind of operate between the 2 systems of threat and drive. The problem is if we sit in the drive system for too long, we have high arousal for too long, and therefore our performance goes down, okay? And what I'm trying to say, and I'll move on quickly, is that we also have to ensure we cultivate the soothing system, the part of our self that can also reconnect, right? It's reconnecting with ourselves and with others. That ability to reconnect with ourselves is basically a way of, this is engaging your parasympathetic part of your brain. It's a way of creating capacity, okay? And by creating capacity, you can lead. You can't lead with, we talked about empowerment. We talked about, going back to what we talked about before. Okay, what am I doing here? Let me just go back. Going back to some of the things we already spoke about, right? We spoke about being responsible, being authentic, being empowered, being a role model, having integrity. When you're in stress, if you don't have high self-awareness, you're not able to do those things. With me? All right. So moving on, and we're going to get into some activities now. I don't know if anybody had a chance, but you guys can do it in your own time. There was some different activities you could do. One of the activities was your origin story. Why is that important? Because if you know what your history is, you know where your beliefs were formed. You know how you could be triggered, right? We're not going to go into that today. But likewise, just like your values that you mentioned, Kevin, you spending a bit of time understanding why do you get up in the morning? That's important. For you to be able to lead in your life, you have to have your why. That's the Simon Sinek thing. If you guys follow him, right? You have to know your why, because when things get dark, when it's stormy outside, when you're stressed, we need to have a why. That's our purpose. Okay. So again, we're not going to do this exercise. This is something for you to do later. I'd really implore you to have a go at this. I can send more resources if you need it. Of course, I'll just give it to you. I asked you guys to do this exercise, which was purposely tracking how you're thinking and feeling when you wake up. Also setting goals for the day, but also understanding why these goals are important. I don't know how often you do that. I don't know how often you think you're supposed to do something, but you don't even ask yourself why you're doing them. Does anybody do that? I do that constantly. You just get into a rhythm and you step back and you go why was that so important? Same with going through a process at the end of the day to understand, did you achieve your goals? And if you didn't, what were the obstacles to achieving those goals? And we're going to talk about what I believe are some of those obstacles that go much deeper than we're normally told. Would anybody, just for 5 minutes, would they be able to share sort of what they got out of this exercise? And particularly, I would love someone to share when they had goals, what was stopping them? So at the end of the night, maybe you just did this 1 or 2 times. It's totally fine if you did it once, or even if you figure it out now as we're talking. What were your goals? And what did you find were the obstacles to achieving those goals? Does anybody want to offer something? Yeah, Kevin?
So basically, one of my goals was to do some consulting work. Basically, it's the only thing that pays my rent, basically. So that was definitely one of my goals. But I really feel how I ignore it, basically, like because I don't know why. So it's not so subconscious. I'm aware that I really don't want to do it because I want to focus on grown-ups. But at the same time, also the consulting enables me to do grown-ups. So it's a bit, I don't know why I don't do it actually. So at the end of the day, I'm sitting there and said, okay, whole day just did grown-ups, no consulting.
Okay. So you had a goal of doing some consulting work, and basically you maybe didn't, and I'm still not clear. What do you have you got a sense for underlying what that could be?
It's a bit obscured actually. So I'm not 100% sure. It's like this procrastinating, basically. Like I do it later. I'm more concentrated in the evening, and it's probably the thing with Eat the Frog, where I prefer to do work for grown-ups, and that's why I don't eat the frog and do the uncomfortable consulting work, which is not as fun.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I can understand that. Makes sense. Lucas?
What I realized what has an impact on achieving my goals is around perfectionism. So I start doing it. I also try to get it done, but I actually want to get it done kind of relatively quickly. My own standards are just quite high that it takes me longer than I actually initially first expected it me to take. But at the same time, also longer than it should take. So it's just kind of the own standard and quality of my work, even though sometimes it's not, this standard of quality is not needed.
Yeah, and that's a really important one, right? Because your level of awareness there is obviously super high because you're recognizing yourself, right? And I think we're going to go into it, but when you're thinking about that, Lucas, is try to understand. Let's try to keep. I want to try to go a little bit deeper on where you think also that comes from, which doesn't mean no or you're willing to share in this forum, but again, we're going back to try to go to the root of where some of that could come from in terms of your own story and how that's impacted your life and your ability to lead, right? Sasha?
Yeah, so not the direct example from this exercise right now, but one thing I learned when I did it for quite some time with this goal setting and having three things is that I normally tend to achieve the first one and then maybe others not really. And I said to myself that it's better for me myself to just have or decide on what is the primary thing. So what is the one that I really need to wanted to finish today and put this a little bit more in focus, and the other things are not just the cherry on top of the icing. It's nice to have, and maybe it's also important, but I'm already happy if I achieve one of those. And I mean, you're not moving as fast, but it's still for me because when I did it with three things, normally I never or I barely made all the three of them, and it's mostly because I don't know, it was too much at the end, or there was other things that also have been important, but at the end I had a negative feeling, and for me it was more okay, what is the I really said, okay, this is the goal. If I have this achieved, then it's already something. And the other thing it's more like a cherry on top, and if I don't make it, was okay for me. I'm not sure what your take is on this, but for me it was really putting three things is too much, or was too much. I know maybe I should improve, but it helped me at least. It's baby steps, maybe.
No, I love that. And there was a good note there, most important goal of the day. And I think that's absolutely a good strategy. And I think I would just caveat with, as long as you're clear on why that is the most important. Because if we don't spend that time to be discerning, you might have just focused on the thing you thought you could achieve fastest, or the thing that you just didn't, you can't, because the 2 and 3 maybe was something that you really have to do, but it was just too insurmountable, or it was triggering you in some way. I don't know about you, but I do it. I can self-sabotage really easy, right? I have a goal and vision for my future, and yet I end up focusing on things that are actually not doing that at all, And it's almost like I had it recently where a friend of mine gave me a reference to someone who I should reach out to as a business contact, really important contact. And I spent days before I replied to them, even though I knew this would move the needle quite far, because I know I'm working on some things around limiting beliefs in my own self, imposter syndrome, not being good enough, all these types of things. So it's just being aware of the why. But I think it's powerful to kind of focus on one thing. I'm conscious of time. What we didn't do purposely was talk about and it doesn't matter whether it's weekly or whatever. What I'm trying to get at here bring us full back to leadership, right? Leading from the inside out. For us to lead from the inside, again, we did some body work, we did some breath work, we did some, what does leadership mean to me? What is maybe a little about my why, But there's still sometimes for many of us, I think for all of us actually, but you can correct me if this doesn't resonate with you, underneath what we think are the problems, the obstacles, is something deeper. There's something going on about why we're not leading our lives. Why are we not showing up in integrity? Christian, you brought up that. Why are we not following our values that we spent a whole group session working on? What's going on? And what I was trying to get at with this was, if you achieve, for example, one out of 7 goals or 3 out of 7 goals over a week, right? And you reflected on, if you really did this consistently, and whether it's a journal exercise or however you do it, the point is understanding what was really causing the obstacles to you leading your life. I think you'd be very surprised, at least I am whenever I do this, about what's actually coming beneath, what's actually happening at the root. And I'm skipping lots of details and I'm going to show you, but something that I've uncovered is we have these so-called limiting beliefs. I'll give you some examples. If we go to this one here, and again, the words might not be how you would identify them, okay? But just play with me here and see if any of these resonate with you. But I'm just going to read it. We create self-made stories and identities that limit our ability to overcome obstacles and achieve our true potential. These stories are limiting beliefs, and they prevent us from reaching our goals. The key to overcoming these beliefs is through acknowledging, accepting, and taking action on them. The list here is basically things that I've spoke to with clients or friends or whatever. Things like, I can't do this. Deep down, I feel a lack of self-belief and trust. I'm going to fail. That's a big one. I'm going to fail. Deep down, I have a fear of failure and a lack of self-trust. I'm not good enough. Deep down, I feel unworthy of success, love, or achievement. Something like, I can't accept this. I'm an imposter. I can't let go of feelings of anger, resentment. You might have that, for example, with someone in your life. One thing that happened, for example, today, I was meeting with a coach. He's a mentor for me. He's like this business coach who has all these clients. And I was talking to him today because his father was in the US Navy, and he was in the Korean War, like a fighter pilot in the Korean War. And his father was super successful, covered in medals, was like a hero, met the president many times, all this stuff. And this guy who I was talking to, his son, was this really crazy successful coach. He's making $50,000 a month coaching at least. And he was underneath it all, he still struggles with anger and resentment towards his father. He still struggles with not being good enough because his father never said, I'm proud of you once in his entire life. He never had his father say, I love you and I'm proud of you. I always let people down. I'm alone. I'm a victim. I can't change. You get my point, right? Do any of these, maybe someone have the courage, do any of these resonate with you? Again, maybe use different words, Kevin.
Yeah, so for me, the I'm alone resonated quite big, quite high. So feeling of not having the supporting foundation, not having family, and being somehow alone in the world.
Yeah, I hear you, brother. Nikolai?
Yeah, I have the same, but also one that's right now for me is this I'm not smart enough, because especially in my job, I'm a developer. I often have the feeling that, I don't know, I have this colleague who's insanely smart, as I think, and I just don't understand what the heck he's even doing, and the stuff he's writing then, or the stuff he's programming is just working, and I don't know, I've never done it, or I feel like this, and yeah, I don't know, I struggle a little bit with that right now.
Yeah, powerful. Yeah, you're not smart enough, which, maybe you equate it different ways. It could be then in that way, you're not good enough, right? You're not achieving some level expectation right? Even though I'm guessing you have this self-awareness that you know you're different and that you have other qualities, other positive strengths, and yet you're a developer, you're working in this world, and you get these other people that come in that seem to just be so much faster, so much smarter, so much better. Yeah. Christian?
Yeah, I just wanted to add to that because and you are also hashtag CDT, and it's kind of a, how do you say, a curse when you work in this environment where there's many smart people. It's good because you learn a lot and it's inspiring and all that, but because I also can totally relate with my past work. Super smart people, I was enjoying it, but also I felt like I'm super dumb because they say smart things and I'm always blah blah blah. Oh wow! And honestly, the same thing when people then also think more than I before they start talking. And there's this once it's good because you learn a lot, and on the other hand, you feel like you're not as good as the others. Can totally.
Yeah, powerful. Okay, I got one from Benny here. Let's have a look. Oh yeah, going to fail. Yeah, being in the founder context. Yeah, it's a huge one for founders. Huge one. In coaching founders, that's probably like the number one thing that shows up, right? I'm going to fail. And actually, I'm really glad you brought it. Oh, we have one from Lucas. Yeah, please, Lucas.
It's interesting because I thought about something similar. I'm going to fail when I think about founding. So I haven't founded yet, but I'm thinking about it. But for me, it's more about not having the resilience to kind of balance founding and balance life at the same time. So not necessarily failing in the context of the company not being successful, but really in the sense of maybe the company is successful, but I just neglect my private life because I don't have the kind of strength and resilience around kind of the keeping the balance.
I love that's a good one, and that could build some like inner resentment, right? That could come up for you. Yeah, and I genuinely hadn't thought about that one, and that's really powerful. Okay, I'm conscious of time. Why again did we speak about that? And let's use that example from Benny. Why does it matter for us to talk about limiting beliefs? Well, in that example of I'm going to fail, right? If we have these, and it's normal, it's a human thing. And actually it's something that I think men particularly struggle with. Why? Because in general, we are not good at having self-awareness of how we're feeling in our body, hence the body work, hence the breath. We don't know how we're feeling emotionally. And we also are often less willing or comfortable to share how we're feeling. And therefore, these beliefs we have, such as I'm going to fail, they build up, right? They fester. They become like hardened side of us. And that matters because, when we're doing that, it's taking our capacity away. Remember we did this at the very beginning. What were you ruminating about? What are you really worried about? So let's say that worry was you're starting a company and you're worried about failing. That takes up so much capacity, takes up so much time that you are not able to lead. You're not able to lead yourself via habits. You're not able to lead yourself with regulating your emotions. So you'd probably be quite reactive, but also you don't have capacity to lead others. And ultimately leadership, and this was very much back, I can't remember who said it. Somebody said about empowering, right? It's very difficult to empower people in your team if you don't have capacity and trust in yourself. Because if you don't trust yourself, you're not going to trust others. So this part here, and again, don't worry that it's called the monthly theme. It doesn't matter. What I was trying to get at here, and I'm going to kind of end the chat part in a second, is just to say we need to have a clear understanding of what our cause for not leading and not performing is. It's usually down, in my experience, to 2 or 3 things, like I'm not good enough, I'm going to fail, I'm an imposter, I'm a victim, I'm alone. Nothing's wrong with this. How you feel is how you feel. But of course, it is your responsibility. Somebody brought up the word responsibility to take action. So this is where you would be spending some time understanding what is a core belief you have and what actions you can take. And that sounds quite obvious, but actions is what changes the game, right? The actions for something like you, Kevin, let's use the example of what you said around feeling alone in your life. What are some immediate actions you could take to try to shift that belief?
For me, like journaling and like thinking about the people and meditating about people in my life, that really makes a difference. So that's the action for me.
So those are immediate actions you can take right now, right? And if I could also say what you just did by sharing it, right? You are a founder of Grown Ups, and you're leading along with Benny your cohort that are here in audience. And it might be obvious to you, but it's not necessarily obvious to everyone else that you are also sharing something. And by sharing something, firstly, hopefully you feel, because you've shared, you feel less alone. There's people here listening to you, but also other people who are feeling the same as you, they resonate from you, right? Because you've taken the lead to share. Therefore, they don't feel alone, obvious, right? But okay, we have about 10 minutes, if I've got my timings right. I'm just going to quickly move forward here. Yeah, this was just a little bit about understanding, what happens when we spend time ruminating on our beliefs for too long. What happens when we don't actually understand what our emotions are. If we don't understand, we can't take action. Yeah, this was a little bit of a run through on how we can apply leadership in a different way. A lot of times leadership is framed as something where we're doing on the outside, right? You need to change some kind of practice at work, or you need to do something on the outside. But what I'm saying is that leadership starts from the inside. And I believe that what we need in our world right now and particularly in the space of men's work, right, is for us to take more responsibility for how we're actually showing up personally and in our lives, leading ourselves. That can be habits. I remember I listened to a podcast recently, and I think it was you, Christian, who was talking about dating, right? And he was dating this girl. I'll make the story like super short. And he's always worried about, like, he meets these girls and he loses them so fast, because eventually the women will ask them, what are your priorities? And he always answers the same. And so he met this girl, and like he like met her, and he was like, oh fuck, like she's my future wife. Like she's genuinely like gonna be my wife. But I'm really worried because she's gonna ask me this question, and I'm worried she's gonna go. And she asked the question, she said, what are your priorities? Like, what do you want in your life 2, 3, 4, 5 years from now? What are your priorities? And he's like, I can tell you, but just be prepared. So that cool. Let's hear him. And he's like, are you sure? Yes. So he said there's 3 priorities. The first one will always be my own health, will be my physical health, my emotional health, my spiritual health. It's my habits, it's my routines. That's number 1. And that will always be number 1. Number 2 is my purpose. It's like, what am I here on this planet to do? And that's always a wishy-washy thing. People have different purposes. It takes time. Something you're focused on. That's back to the why. And then he said, third is my partner and my family. Very interesting, right? Most men, when they have kids, they usually say my family are number 1. I don't know if you guys find that. That's often very normal. But it's interesting when you think about that, right? To like lead your own life, lead outside. For you to lead your family, you first have to lead yourself. I would like to know what he says once he has children. It's a good point. And actually, he told this story 4 years after he met her. And he does actually have kids. And somebody asked him the same question. And he said it's still the same, because what he says is for him to be a father, to be the father he is, he's continued to keep that priority. It doesn't mean there's not consequences, and he has to compromise a little bit, of course. Sasha?
Sorry, I was muted. I actually have 2 kids.
Yeah.
The longer I
Well,
think about it, makes sense. So, I mean, I think you want to put that first, but at the end, if you are not like doing what we right now do with this entire grown-up story, and you did well, you will not succeed in this for a long time. You will be good in this like for a short-term period, but for like an entire life, I think the number 1 and 2, you need to reach a certain level to be actually the person you need to be successful in number 3. So that's like I can relate to it. It might sound like not right, but it's actually a very good way of looking into it, so, at least for me.
But thank you. And I can imagine it's not easy. Like, have you been able to keep up your routines? Do you feel like you have a good...
I think that's why Kevin also convinced me to do the session here, because it's exactly the struggle I feel. I mean, and I can see if I put only the focus on the later parts, I know that my mood and everything is not making or going in the right direction, I would say. So I can definitely feel if I put 3 like always on top and on the first one that I'm not happy about that. And it's more like, and I know that then at the end it's, I don't know, I get more triggered by minor things, whatever. Like it's not that I'm resilient to when someone when my 3-year-old is throwing herself on the floor and just saying no to everything I propose. That's triggering me more than when I'm not good in 1 or 2.
Was that, thank you for that. Lucas, was that also, I think, what you were kind of saying about the resentment part? Was that what you were also getting at a little bit? I think it was you, Lucas. Maybe I had it wrong.
Yeah, if you mean kind of the part about not balancing work, startup, and life, then yes.
Exactly.
Yes, definitely. To put it maybe in one sentence, if your company is super successful, but you fail in your private life or in your marriage or in your family life, then the question is, have you been successful overall? So maybe it's also about the definition of success.
Also, that's powerful, the definition of success. I think that's also an important point, right? And I don't know about you guys, but like that's something I don't think, Kevin, you and I spoke about this. That in the first men's circle I ever did, I asked that question, right? How do you define success? What does success mean to you? And the answer I got, like, success was, money or having a certain job or a successful whatever career, whatever that looked like.
A hot wife.
Yeah, hot wife. I mean, that's definitely sounds pretty successful. Yeah, that's fair. But it's also like you said, Lucas, is like reframing or getting to a deeper understanding of why. So if something is a hot wife, let's use that example, or making a company successful, like what, like why? Like why is that your level of success? There's no right or wrong. There's nothing wrong with this. But it's important to understand why, because if it's something like, and these are questions that can be hard to answer because we have to bring up some truths, right? Because it could be, well, because I want to make money. Okay, why? That gives me a level of security. Why? Because I didn't have that as a kid, for example. Or something that comes up a hell of a lot with all my work is, and I'm only sharing it because I feel it. And by the way, I'm like only like 50 feet away from my own father who's asleep right now. My father, I'm very, very lucky, but I'm always trying to prove something to him constantly. And even when he dies, I'll still be wanting to prove something to him. It'll never be good enough. Even though my father will now say, I'm proud of you. Never good enough, right? It's a belief I have that I have to work on. I don't know if anybody else resonates with that. That's deep shit. But we only have a couple more minutes. Does anybody have any last thoughts or anything they want to share? I'm so thankful. It's been really early for you guys. You all probably have to go to work. So I'm really very grateful for trying to follow me on this journey through the last hour and a half. I hope there was some value. And I'm always here to talk. I think what you guys are doing is, I think you guys are pioneers, and I think you guys, sounds fucking cheesy, but I think you guys are changing the world. So I hope you continue to do what you're doing.
And Yeshua, how can get people in touch with you if they want to?
Yeah, sure. I'll send over some info afterwards, but essentially you can just fire me an email. I'll put it on here. You can also check out my LinkedIn if you want to. I'll also share that. And otherwise, you can reach me through yourselves, Kevin and Benny. Always here to chat. I'll just copy this over. LinkedIn is probably like a good way. And school. Oh yeah, good point. I'm going to be more active on school. I want to support you guys there. Thank you very much. I wish you guys all the best for the holidays when you get there. And thank you. Thank you for the time. It's been an honor.
Thank you very much, Joshua.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Sure.
Muchas gracious. Joshua was super nice.
Thanks. I feel like I lost them a few times because it was getting quite deep, It's hard to get a balance because I don't know the guys,
I didn't have the feeling, but let's see. I mean, we get the feedback, but I actually like the interactivity in the group.
Good.
Also, I had the feeling many did the exercises. That was nice.
Okay, that's good. I was going to ask you guys. So you have cohort 1 and 2. When does 2 end, Benny?